China. Annyeonghaseyo to our friends in Korea. We would also like to say bonjour to our friends in France. Hi and hello to our friends in Canada, the United States of America, and the United Kingdom. Y por supuesto, nuestros hermanos y hermanas en España, hola y buenas tardes. Let's give them all a big, big hand. But you see, that is not enough, ladies and gentlemen, because we Filipinos are known for a very special gift. Not only the gift of hospitality, but the gift of music and song. And so we would like, in this time of pandemic, in this most difficult time of COVID-19, we would like to greet our brothers and sisters throughout the world through the gift of music and song. Je t'aime, te amo, I love you. Watashi wa nato ashimasu. Iklibirig, iniibig kita kwa ID. Paano man sabihin ng mundo'y turuan natin, tanging lunas ay pag-ibig. Je t'aime, te amo, I love you. Watashi wa nato ashimasu. Iklibirig, iniibig kita kwa ID. Paano man sabihin ng mundo'y turuan natin, tanging lunas ay pag-ibig. Viva Vince Escario! That was quite an opening, wasn't it? This afternoon, we will be discussing concept building in Philippine festivals. Now, this module is one that you can use not only for your Sinulog contingents, but this is a module that you can also use for your particular festivals in your provinces, in your towns, or in your cities. It is also a module that you can even use in depth ed settings, in the classroom, in extracurricular activities, in school. Okay? So let's all have fun by learning together. Concept building. Now, let me begin by saying that 500 years ago, when the Spaniards first came to the Philippines and colonized us, they brought with them two very important elements. The sword, which was a symbol of Spain's military might, power, and influence, and the cross, symbolizing faith. The cross and the sword. But let me talk more about the cross, because it is the cross, the symbol of faith, that has brought us to where we are today. Diba? Because through time and through history, as everything evolved, the cross became faith and fiesta. That is why in the olden times, you all had these, not only the revelry, but you also had the solemnity of celebrating a fiesta. Because a fiesta during the time was usually religious in nature, celebrating a feast day of a particular saint. And so sa unang panahon, sa simbahan, ang mga kantora, Ave Maria, gratia plena. Diba? Dios salve Maria, llena eres de gracia. El Señor es contigo, bendita tú eres entre todas las mujeres, y bendito es el fruto de tu vientre Jesús. Santa María, Madre de Dios, ruega por nosotros pecadores, ahora y en la hora de nuestra muerte. Amen. So that was the role of the beatas, the religious. Meanwhile, the men folk would be busy with the carpentry of the carroza, or painting probably the chapel or the church, or fixing their homes. The women folk would be cooking, making sure that everyone is well provided for, that there is food on the table. Meanwhile, the gentlemen who were actually feeling like they were women were also quite busy decorating the carroza, making flower arrangements. So everyone had a role. It was solemnity, faith, and it was also fiesta and frivolity. And that tells us of two things, of one thing rather, that man is a dual being. We are balanced. If there is the faith, there is solemnity, there is also fiesta, celebration, revelry, frivolity. Just as there is a right, there is a left. Just as there is front, there is back. If there is up, there is down. There is lightness, there is darkness. Because that is what nature and life is all about, balance. And so, in our festivals, we need to find that balance. Because the minute you do not have that balance, then you fall, you trip. Diba? Kung makay balanse, mahagbong yun ka. So we need to find that balance. In our personal lives, in our family lives, in our community life, even in our sometimes frivolous celebrations like festivals. And they are not entirely frivolous because our festivals are correct? So now, you see, your team of speakers have crisscrossed and traversed the entire breadth of the Philippine archipelago, giving this type of lectures and these modules. And because we have had that experience for more than a decade now, we have also realized and learned that there are certain common experiences as well as certain common problems that are shared by all. If there are differences, there are also commonalities. Again, balance. And one of the strange or peculiar realizations that we've made throughout the years is when we ask people, why are you having a fiesta? Why are you having a festival? The common answers would always be for tourism purposes, to promote our town, to let people and the world know where my town is, where my city is, where my province is, what our products are. So, the approach and the mindset and the paradigm is and has always been looking out, to promote, to let people know, to let people buy my products. It's all marketing, it's all promotion, it's all tourism. That is a common paradigm, that is a common mindset all over the Philippines insofar as having festivals is concerned. And so, that kind of worried me. I said, if you have an attitude that is more attuned to the externals, then we run the danger of losing sense of who we are. Because rarely do you find people who will say, we are having this festival so that first and foremost, our local community will understand, appreciate, and embrace local culture. We are having this festival so that the local community, especially the kids and the youth, have a good grasp of our local history, of our traditions, of our songs and dances, our music, so that our own local community will become stronger, more resilient, because they are now more aware and more appreciative of who we are as a people. One of you may be from Argao. The other one may be from the neighboring town of Dalagete. Those towns are right beside each other, but they are worlds apart. There are certain things that you can only find in Argao and cannot find in Dalagete, and vice versa. But you have to know the difference. As an Argawanon, you have to know what makes me different from my neighbor in the next town. I am from Bantayan. Bantayan is a small island with 3 municipalities in northern Cebu. Santa Fe, which is the resort town and the entry point of the island. Bantayan, which is the mother town and the center for arts and culture, trade and commerce. And then you have Madre de Dios, which is the farthest, which is the capital, the seafood capital. But Santa Fe is different from Bantayan, and Bantayan is different from Madre de Dios, as Madre de Dios is different from Bantayan and Santa Fe. And we are just in one island, and yet we find very salient differences among ourselves. And if we are not aware, and if we do not give importance and focus to these little details. You know, they say that the devil is in the detail. That is very true. If we do not give importance to local history, to our dances, to our songs, to our poems, to our legends, what will become of us down the road, 10 years, 20 years down the road? That is the effect of globalization, uniformity. You become one. You all look the same. You wear the same clothes. You go to the same buildings. Uniformity. There is no variety. And that is why my paper today is called Looking In, Looking Out. We first have to look inside us before we can give what we've discovered inside us to the outside world. Mother Teresa of Calcutta once said, "The more you receive in your internal life, the more you're able to give in your outside world." The more you can receive in your internal life, the more you can give to the outside world. In Greek, they say, "Nemo dat quod non habet." No, that's Latin. You cannot give what you do not have. So what identity can you share to the entire world as a Cebuano, as a Negrense, as an Ilonggo, as a Bantayanon, as an Argawanon? What identity can you give to the world if you have not looked inside you and discovered, embraced, and appreciated the person within? So we look inside ourselves, introspection, so that we are able to give more to the outside world. And that is a process we will be doing with concept building in Philippine festivals. It is my hope that through this short lecture, we are able to guide you to look into the identities and the uniqueness, the peculiarities of your particular cities, towns, municipalities, provinces, or the particular, peculiar, unique elements you have as a community, so that we are able to guide you, to rediscover yourselves, to look inside, so that after, there is more and more that you can give to the world outside. You become now a fountain of wisdom and a fountain of inspiration, because just by listening to you share your stories, share your history, your poetry, your songs, your dances, one can feel that almost palpable pride of self. And that is what is important. You know, we all pass through this world but once. But the memory of who we are is what we leave behind. That is what you call legacy. So we ask ourselves, you know, sa lapida, in the tombstone, so you have the name of the person who just died, and then you have the date of birth, dash, and then the date of death. So, what is the most important? Is it the name? Is it the date of birth? Is it the date of death? Is it the dash? Is it the epitaph? And the answer to that is, it is the dash between your date of birth and your date of death. Because that short, little, almost inconsequential dash is the largest part of your life, because that is when you were living on this earth. And how you lived and how we live is what we will leave behind. And so, this afternoon, we look in as you also look out. Now, let us begin by saying that if festivals are truly to become sustainable, and if festivals are vehicles or instruments that teach the world and that shares to the world our stories, who we are, there has to be three very important, imperative, integral components in your festival so that they become sustainable in the long run, throughout the years, so that the festival truly belongs to the people, so that the festival truly is a story of who you are, of who we are, of who I am. That is what festivals are meant to be. So what are these three very important components? I call them the 3 R's. Slide, please. And the first R that you have to ask when creating a festival, or when creating a dance, or when writing a story, or when trying to communicate your identity and your uniqueness to the rest of the world, the first question is, are you for real? Is it real? Hello, lollipops and roses? Are you real? Dreams are my reality, a different kind of, see? Is it real? Next, please, go to the 3 R's. Why is it important? Why is reality important? Next, please. Next. So the first R is your festival real? Is there a genuine and permanent reason to have a festival? Is it real historically, culturally? Is the theme, product, occupation, resource, or concept behind the festival real to the people? And if it is a creative festival, does it become real to the people because the process by which this creative festival was conceptualized and introduced to the community is to the liking and approval of the larger social community, and has in the same breath been embraced and accepted by the same. Is that clear? You just cannot make a festival that is not real at all, meaning to say it's fake. It is not embraced and accepted by the community. It is perhaps a product of someone's overactive imagination, or probably a product of someone's ego. Someone in power, someone of influence who just decides, this is what I want, this is the festival of my town, this is the festival of my city, without even consulting the stakeholders, without even consulting the community. When that happens, that festival is not real. So reality is the first very important component in concept building. The second R that we have to consider is it representative? Does it truly speak of the lifestyle, the cultural heritage of the people? Does the festival convey the collective experience of the social community? Our stories, our myths, our dances, our songs, our dreams and aspirations, our cultural resources. Is it representative of who we are? Is that clear? The third one is also equally important. Does your concept or does your festival have recall? And recall is very important. You have different kinds. You have brand recall, you have experiential recall, you have name recall. For example, when you talk about cell phones, what brands would you come in mind? I'm sure you'll say something, right? Or if you talk about cars. Now, brand speaks of quality. So that is important. Brand recall, it speaks about quality. Your festival or your concept will be remembered and recalled for its quality. Just as we remember our utensils, our cars, vehicles, or the clothes that we wear, we are always looking for particular brands that we like because we associate them with quality. So it is important that when you conceptualize something, the end product will always be associated with quality. You certainly wouldn't want to come up with something that's chaka. You certainly would not want to come up with something that people will not notice, take notice of, or at the worst, even dislike. Because we always want to come up with something excellent, of good quality. That is brand recall. What is experiential recall now? Experiential recall is very important. Those who are not from Cebu, or those who have witnessed the Sinulog for the very first time, are the very best people to ask about experiential recall. I have a friend, she's Spanish, she's from Madrid, Spain, and she told me that what she could never forget, what she will always remember, what she will always recall about her Sinulog experience was that you had to line up at the Basilica gates at 3 in the morning, only to stand there for about 3 hours before she could finally go near the statue of the Christ child, say a little prayer. But it took her 3 hours. That alone was an experience that she will never forget. That is experiential recall. When you are in the Basilica, and when the faithful start waving their white handkerchiefs or their hands up in the air, Batu balani sa gugma, people, tears streaming down their faces, in rapture, in prayer, in faith to this little child, swinging their arms in the air, almost trance-like. That is a sight and an experience to recall, to remember for a lifetime. Those of you who are party people will remember Sinulog probably for the parties that end up at 6 in the morning, or for the parties in almost every street corner, or for the booze. But still, that is part of the experience. So, does your festival offer your visitors experiential recall? Or it could be the music. It could be the dance step. Right? One of the best festival jingles ever written is the Palawan Festival, and it has won Best in Musicality a number of times. Managtigong kita ug maghudya ka, magambahan kita sa ulugutang nakamtantang grasya, uban sa paghigugma, uban sa pagbugsay ta, awit sa kalipay, awit unta bantayanon, huni sa Palaw. So people hear that and they say, hey, there's a Palawan Festival of Bantayan Island. That's experiential recall. Or Karansa of Danao, another beautiful jingle. See? So all of these, the music, the sounds, the dance steps, the props, the parties, the faith, the solemnity, the fluvial procession, walk for Mary, the translation. These are elements that provide quality experiential recall. And so, when people say Sinulog, they say Cebu. And as a matter of fact, in social media, in Facebook, Sinulog has always landed as one of the top 10 most amazing festivals in the world because of quality, because of brand recall, because of experiential recall. Now, pandemic. See, COVID. All of us are wearing masks and face shields. This is an experience not only us, but the citizens of this entire world will remember for the rest of their lives, for the rest of our lives. And this moment, these difficult times, will go down in history as a painful memory, but also as a part of history where people showed solidarity, where people showed love, where people showed kindness. So there is balance. If there is pain, there is death. There is also kindness. There is always generosity. There is always salam. There is always faith. Balance. So in concept building, we try very hard, as I've said, and I'll say this over and over again, to find that balance so that the stories that we make through our music, through our poetry, through our dance, through our festivals, is balanced, and is therefore sustainable, and you'll be remembered forever, way after we have long been gone. So there are certain tools, creative tools, that we can use to find that balance. Certain creative tools that can aid us in creating those stories, that can aid us and help us and guide us in coming up with our own stories to tell. So what are these creative elements? Let's begin with the very first one. Of course, if we are to tell our story, if I'm to tell my story, I have to know my history. Right? Next slide, please. If we are to tell stories, then we need to know where we came from, the manner by which we came to this earth, the circumstances behind that creation. You know, I love telling friends that I am a child of both the North and the South, so I'm well balanced. You know why? Because my dad is from Batayan Island, which is in the north, and my mom is from Argao, which is in the south. They met right in the center of the island of Cebu City, the Queen City of the South. And I am their fourth child. So I am a child of both the North and the South. That is part of my story. I can tell you stories of my childhood in Argao, or parts of my childhood, at least memories with my cousins, with my uncles and aunts, and my abuelitas. And I can tell you so much stories about Batayan, because that is part of me. So when we research to come up with concepts for our creative endeavors, for our festivals, we have to know our history. Sinulog is a festival of history, just like Kadaugan sa Mactan. We are all very familiar with what Kadaugan sa Mactan tries to depict or depicts. It is the Battle of Mactan, where Lapu-Lapu, the first Filipino hero, killed Magellan, the first tourist to be killed in the Philippines. Right? But that is the history. So these are festivals that talk about history. Sinulog, of course, is both religious and historical. But why, for example, do we have the search for the Sinulog Festival Queen? People who do not know their history will say, oh, you know how Filipinos are. They are in love with beauty pageants. Is that the reason why we have the search for the Sinulog Festival Queen? No, certainly not. Because history teaches us that when Hara Humaymay, who later on became Reina Juana, received the statue of the Christ child, she was said to have carried it with so much joy that she danced around the village of Zubu, carrying the statue and the image of the little Christ child in her hands, dancing, 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 out of joy, out of rapture for her newfound faith. precisely why she changed her name from Humaymay to Juana. She became Catholic. So that is the history of the Festival Queen. Correct? And look at the Sinulog, which is a very much copied, and we're talking about concepts, very much copied festival almost all over the Philippines, where you have all these municipalities, cities, and provinces having their own street dance and ritual showdown competition, and then their own patron saints. And what they do is they carry their patron saints, dance around the streets as if it were the Santo Niño, which is wrong. Which is wrong. History teaches us that the Santo Niño, or the image, was carried. In actuality, was danced around the village of Zubu. Is there any history that is similar insofar as the patron saints are concerned? You certainly cannot carry Saint Michael the Archangel around and go dancing and prancing, or else makabuhi ang bitin niya ay kitamakan. Diba? And also, remember that the Santo Niño is a Christ child. Okay? So, we worship, as Catholics, we are taught that we worship God. We adore saints. So they are not supposed to be given the same kind of treatment. And I am so glad that because of our workshops, a lot of municipalities, cities, and provinces all over the Philippines who used to commit this blatant mistake have finally stopped dancing with their patron saints or even with the Virgin Mary. We had the chance to visit one municipality and be their judges for their festival, and we were appalled when the lead dancer was carrying the statue of the Virgin Mary, and she was in a very, very skimpy outfit. Is there something wrong? Do I continue? Can I be heard? Do I continue? Let's pause for a few reminders. Mic test. All right, we're back on air. Are we back online? Yes, we are. Welcome back. And as we were saying, use local history as a foundation, as a solid foundation, as an inspiration for your creative endeavors. Because there is so much to learn from history. Ang taong hindi marunong lumingon sa kanyang pinanggalingan ay hindi makakapunta sa kanyang paroroonan. So we always have to look back. That is why this year, even if we do not have Sinulog sa Dakbayan and Sinulog sa Panlalawigan, on January 9 and on January 10, we have what we call a rewind or ang pagbalik tanaw sa Sinulog sa mga niaging katuigan. Because it is always important for us to look back, to remember, to recall. We may not have the actual Sinulog sa Kabataan and Sinulog sa Panlalawigan, but we will have still the opportunity to look back, to recall, to remember. That is very important. What is the opposite of remember? Forget. It is? Forget. Yeah, forget, you're correct. But I have a much better word. It is dismember. When you are dismembered, what does that mean? You've lost a limb, you've lost a leg, you've lost a hand or an arm, you are dismembered. When you are dismembered, you are no longer complete. Right? That is why it is important for us to remember, because it is in remembering that we are made complete. That is why we have to reconnect instead of disconnect. When we are disconnected from our families, we become lonely, we become sad, we become depressed. When we are disconnected from someone we love, we find ourselves in pain, in sorrow, in sadness, in loneliness. But when we reconnect with someone or something precious and special to us, we feel completeness. We feel hope. We feel joy. We feel life. So let us not dismember. Rather, let us remember. Let us not disconnect. Let us reconnect. And that is what history teaches us, to remember, to reconnect. And it is my hope that when you go back to your own respective schools, when you go back to your own respective municipalities, provinces, cities, you will have that in your heart and in your mind. The importance to reconnect, the importance to remember, the importance of history. I guess it's clear enough. So, we come to our second element. Next slide, please. And that is, after history, we are all living individuals, right? And an integral part of who we are, what gives us pride, what gives us a sense of purpose, is what we do for a living, is our occupation. How do you, if you are a father, how do you provide food for your family? If you're a mother, how can you assist your husband in nurturing the kids? What do you do as an individual, as a person? We all need to work. That is why this pandemic is so bad. Because up to this very day, so many people have been displaced. So many people are unemployed. And it is work that gives us dignity. It is work that gives us pride. It is work that gives us a sense of fulfillment, even power, even influence. It is work that gives us a sense of purpose. Because oftentimes, it is work that defines us as individuals. Correct? So, local livelihood, occupation, is something that you may want to look into. Let me give you a very good example. When I did the Livelihood Festival of Bantayan, I had to start with music. Why? Because people love to sing. We Filipinos are known for a gift of song. Dance you have to teach, right? But singing? Goodness! You have millions of people who are out of tune, but still, they sing. Or they at least try to sing. Right? But dance you have to teach. And there are many of us who have two left feet. But music, song, because people love to sing, I said, alright, this is what I want. I want the sound of bamboo slapping against the waves. That was why when I started the Livelihood Festival, it was imperative that they use the kalatong. tak, tarak, tak, 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 tak. Because I wanted that sound. I wanted the feel of water, of the sea, of the ocean. And so we used the budyong. And the budyong in Batayan was part of local occupation because when people were all out in the fields working and it was time to take a break, the headmaster would get the budyong, make a huge sound, and they would all hear it and they would all come, take a break and eat and rest. So these are elements in local occupation that I wanted to put into the music, so that it becomes real, so that it becomes representative. One of the concepts that we had, as a matter of fact, was palusad. Since we are a community of fishermen, since we live in an island, one of the most important occupation is fishing. And because fishing is an important occupation, it brings food to the table. Palaud means to go out to the far reaches of the ocean and come back to shore with a bountiful catch. That's what it means, right? So you have boat building. And you know, this is also cultural and traditional, all right, aside from occupation. So the boat builders there, they build their boats probably a kilometer or two away from the shoreline. On the day that the boat is ready to be launched, iglusad, it's called palusad. No matter how far they may be from the water, the minute they lift that boat, they are not allowed to ever allow the boat to touch the ground, not until they reach the water. So sometimes they can carry huge boats for like a kilometer or two, never allowing the hull or any part of the boat to touch solid ground. That is culture defined by occupation. When you talk about occupation, you also have to talk about technology, local technology. You know, we are a country of 7,000 plus islands, and the way you may farm coconut in Masbate may be different from the way they farm coconut in Cotabato. Or the fishing technology in Luzon is different from the fishing technology in the Visayas. In Cebu alone, we don't have rivers. Precisely why, unlike our northern brothers and sisters, they eat tilapia, they eat carp, they eat mudfish, right? But we don't do that here. So the fishing technology, for example, is unique in their areas. Is unique because of their environment, because of their ecosystems. And so when you do your research, occupation alone will teach you about the various livelihood technologies available. You know, we think that fishing is simple. You just cast your net, pull it up, and then you have some fish. Oh no. You have different kinds of fishing technologies. I went fishing just a week before I came. We were at the tip of the Baigan Wharf. I was there from 11 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. And thank God, I only caught one fish. You know why? Because I used the wrong bait. See? So even as simple as farming, coconut farming, corn farming, rice farming, vegetable farming, or as simple as fishing, be it in the rivers, in the streams, in the lakes, or in the ocean, if you just find time to research and learn, you will realize what a dearth of resource you can have in using these creative inspirations as the basis and foundation for your concept. And because they are technologies, livelihood technologies, that are unique to your area, that are unique to your community, they are real, they are representative. So apart from history, we have occupation. Let us just be more observant, look around us, appreciate the little things that people around us do. The first time I walked from the main island of Bantayan to the little islet of Piagayan, all the while here I was, city boy, educated. All the while I thought from point A to point B, you just go straight. But I was so embarrassed when a local fisherman who was not even an elementary graduate had to stop me from taking that direction because he told me you cannot pass through that area because the current is so strong. If you go right, that is where the sea snakes are. If you go farther right, that is where the sea urchins are. Indigenous knowledge. People who may not have had the privilege of formal education, but because of their occupation, have learned to form indigenous knowledge. And because of that, he saved my life. Occupation is something as simple could be a wealth of information and inspiration. Clear? Let's move on. Number 3, after history, after occupation, we have our natural resources. Of course, natural resources, we all know what they are, right? Flora, fauna, plants, trees, animals, but rivers, lakes, seas, waterfalls, rocks, minerals, natural resources. Let me give you a good example. The Hinulawan Festival. Is a river in Toledo called Hinulawan? Ginger? Is the river in Toledo called Hinulawan? Yes, it is, right? So, it is the festival, the festival, the Hinulawan Festival, is named after a natural resource, which is a river in Toledo. And it became creative because by the river and in the river, they mine gold, right? Mag-mining, they pan gold. So that's an industry, it's a local industry unique to Toledo. We do not have that in Bantayan because we do not have rivers. We do not have that in Cebu because our rivers are so clogged up. But anyway, in Toledo City, which is the mining capital of Cebu, they have the Hinulawan River. And there, they mine gold. So, someone thought, hey, aside from the word Hinulawan, which is the name of the river, Hinulawan could also mean Hinaguang Bulawan. Gold that they've actually worked for. Hinaguang Bulawan. So what a perfect mix. What a coincidence, you might say. But from a natural resource, a river, comes one of the most popular and established festivals in the province of Cebu, the Hinulawan Festival. Soli Soli Festival of Camotes. You know what Soli Soli is? Soli Soli is a type of reed that grows in Lake Danau, in the island of Camotes. And that Soli Soli reed, they dry it under the sun, they sun dry it, and then they weave it into mats, into bags, into wallets, into tapestries. So they thought of the word Soli Soli. Since this is unique to our island, to our municipality, we have a big freshwater lake. Who would ever think that in an island like Camotes, there is a beautiful, huge freshwater lake right in the middle. And in that lake grows the Soli Soli reed that has become a source of income for the local community and a source of income, therefore, occupation. A natural resource becoming a source of occupation, income, industry, culture, tradition, livelihood technology, and you're talking about the reed. It just grows there. But it has changed the social, cultural, and economic landscape of Camotes. Natural resource. One of the best stories that I always love to share is our experience with the Siloy Festival. The Siloy Festival, as you know, is named after the Siloy, or the black shama, Capsicus cebuensis, scientific name. And the black shama is endemic to the town of Alcoy. So when we did the Siloy Festival, again, the Siloy being a bird, it is a natural resource, right? So when we did our festival management and dance workshop in the municipality of Alcoy, we had to climb the Mag-abo forest. Is that right, Junja? Mag-abo forest, right? Mag-abo. Yeah, there. Mag-abo forest. So we had to climb it. And the Siloy apparently comes out only twice a day. Early in the morning and dusk, twilight. So we had to go there very, very early in the morning. We had to start trekking at 5 o'clock in the morning. We reached the other side of the forest at around 12. And we only saw a few birds. But because we were able to study and document the movement of the Siloy, we were able to come up with the 4 basic steps of the Siloy Festival dance. So it is a mimetic dance because the movement, the dance vocabulary mimics the movement of the black shama or the Siloy. One characteristic of the Siloy, when it perches on a branch, it walks sideways, left and right, like this. Of course, it's perching on a branch, so it can't go back or front. Magbog siya. So he only has to go left and right, because if he goes front, he falls. If he goes back, he also falls. Of course, he flies because he swings, he's a bird. But the basic footwork was based on the movement of the bird. And you have this. Because the Siloy cleans its wings by burrowing its beak and by nipping probably some bugs or whatever dirt there is on its wings. And so you have that movement mimicking the Siloy cleaning its wings. So you have a little bird that is highly endangered, that is endemic only to the municipality of Alcoy, and yet from that little bird that is now critically endangered, from that little black bird came a beautiful song, came a winning performance when they won third prize, if I'm not mistaken, in 2008. First place. And became a source of pride. And then they were sent outside to represent Cebu. So here is a little town that used to be unknown, that used to be so obscure, unknown to the rest of the world, unknown to the rest of the Philippines, but because of that little black bird called the Siloy, and because of its festival, because of its dance, and because of its song, that the blackbird, the Siloy, inspired the municipality of Alcoy, is now known more than ever. So if you have that, what are the particular birds that you find in your own local community? In Bourbon, if I'm not mistaken, they have that snail. They call it something. And you don't find that in other places. In Aloginsan, for example, they have the Hinatan Festival. And the Quincy is a type of fish. It's a rather big fish that it comes out seasonal. It comes out mid-year. The rest of the year, it disappears. I do not know where it goes. So the people of Aloginsan look forward to the season, to the months when the Quincy shows itself rather abundantly. So they celebrate that. So they have the Hinatan Festival of Aloginsan. Another example of a natural resource becoming a source of creative inspiration for dance, for music, for choreography, for stories, for song, for poetry, for architecture, for art. And it teaches us one very important message. Sometimes, or oftentimes, sometimes not often enough. Oftentimes, we take things for granted. We see them every day, they become so ordinary, we take them for granted. And we are not able to perceive, to see, to understand, to appreciate, and to understand the value of these things. Just like relationships. We think that that person will be there for him. And so we take him or her for granted. When we lose that person, crayola. Don't cry out loud, just keep it inside. Learn how to see. Let us not take things for granted. Let us be more sensitive, be more attuned to the world around us, to our small communities. Because it is in being sensitive. If we just find that moment to open not only our eyes, but our hearts, that we are able to discover the extraordinariness of things that are ordinary. If we only find that moment in our hearts to discover that what used to be so ordinary has special traits, characteristics that make it extraordinary. And if we can harness that power, that extraordinariness in ordinariness, if we can harness that creatively to create dance, to create music, to create choreography, to create poetry, to create song, to inspire art, then certainly you have done something extraordinary. Let's move on now. Next, as I said, the Sinulog is also a religious festival. And part of that heritage is a translacion. Part of that heritage and religious tradition is the procession, is the walk for Mary, is a visit to the Basilica. Batubalani sa gugma, a song so moving, a song so powerful, is part of our collective religious heritage. Panagtagbo Festival of Mandaue City is based on a religious tradition. Ang Panagtagbo, the meeting of Saint Joseph and Mary. Ang Panagtagbo, the meeting. Another festival based on religious tradition is in Hinatilan. And Juliet, it is called Hinatan Festival. Hinatan, okay? To drop off something, to deliver something. And what is that something that the people of Hinatilan deliver? It is the sacred host. During the olden times, there was a lack of priests. So the priest, the only priest at the time, since the people in the mountains and in far-flung areas couldn't come down to the poblacion to attend Sunday Mass, what the priest did was he would be the one to go up the mountains, to go up to the forgotten villages, to the far-flung, most isolated areas, to bring them Holy Communion. Gihatdan, hinatdan sila, the Holy Host. And that was very sensitive and generous and magnanimous of that priest. Now he realized, I couldn't let all these people walk, leave their farms, leave their houses, just to come down to the town proper for Sunday Mass. Instead of having thousands or hundreds of them walk for kilometers, why don't I just be the one? I, who is a chosen one. I, who is a worker in the Lord's vineyard. Why couldn't I be the one to go to them, to bring them the body of Christ? That is a beautiful religious tradition that has been transformed into dance, into music, into a festival. So let us look into our religious traditions. My family is a devotee of Saint Joseph and Saint Therese. So we have very particular religious traditions as devotees of these two saints, and to Saint Jude as well, and the Nazareno. So attached to these are peculiar, unique religious traditions, songs, music, the gozos, the prayers, and the rituals that come with them. So these are unique. And if you just take time to look into these religious traditions, again you will discover that you have a dearth and a wealth of information and of inspiration that you can use as your basis and foundation of your cultural and artistic undertakings. And then, after religious heritage, we move on to local cultural practices. Well, Hinatan is religious and both cultural, right? Something religious has become cultural because that singular decision of that particular priest to go out to the mountains and to serve the people by bringing them the body of Christ, something purely religious through the years evolved into culture. It became part of their Sunday life. So it was embedded through time into their culture. Toslog Festival of the municipality of Oslog. This one is a cultural trait. Apparently, the people of Oslog love to pair whatever it is, banana or fish or pork, humba, with a dipping sauce. No? What do you call that? What do you call a dipping sauce?
Sausawan.
Huh? Sumsuman? What do you call
Sausawan.
that? Anyway, pwede siya.
Sausawan.
It could be vinegar with garlic, or vinegar with soy sauce. Basta. For the people of Oslog, their culinary practice, tradition, is to always have a dipping sauce on the table, because every time they eat, and whatever they eat, they have to dip it into the sauce. Tuslog. So from that peculiar, unique, culinary, cultural practice evolved another festival. So look into these cultural practices. Sometimes they become sources of amusement, right? In Bolhoon, for example, you know, when they laugh, they have this very peculiar kind of bird-like sound, you know, at the end of their sentences, and they call it talidhay. Talidhay, panalidhay. It is unique to them. And if you listen, at first you get surprised, and then later on you get amused, and then you get entertained. Because it is only in Bolhoon that you have that. So again, cultural practices, no matter how ordinary they may seem, how mundane, how ordinary they may seem to be, they could be what differentiates us from the rest. And so again, if we are just attuned to these little details, then we are able to reconnect ourselves by knowing these cultural practices as the elements that define our uniqueness. It is just a matter of opening our eyes. Open your eyes, look up to the skies and see. Right? Bohemian Rhapsody. Open your eyes, look up to the sky and see. Cultural practices. In them could lie the secret of our uniqueness. Next slide, please. We also have product. You know, the Department of Trade and Industry a few years back launched OTOP, one town, one product. In Cebu, for example, Talisay is known for its lechon, right? Karkar is known for its ampao, bocarillo, chicharon, chinelas. Argao is known for its torta. It's known for its nanggilang stablea, right? A festival named after a product is the Tostado Festival of Santander. Tostado, it is a local delicacy. People who go to Santander during the fiesta will never go home empty-handed because chances are someone will give them a pack of tostado to bring back home to the city. And the tostado is unique to Santander. That is why when we did our dance workshop, the stakeholders decided that the movement of how to bake and make the tostado would be the foundation of their movement vocabulary. So they have this. Ukay? They have, you know, because they use a grinding stone. So they have that movement. Alright? Mimicking again the movement of the local bakers that bake the tostado. You have Budbud Kabug of Katmon, right? You have Pintos of Bogo City. So festivals named after their town's most celebrated product. Because not only is a product a tool for promoting the town, not only is a product a delicacy that one can offer to friends and to guests, not only is the product representative of local livelihood, but the product is also a source of pride. It is a source of pride. It is a source of income. It is a source of industry. It is an occupation. So the product encompasses so many facets of life that it again becomes embedded in local culture. And it is just up to us, creatives, to find ways and means on how to harness the stories behind a particular product and create from them creative movement, poetry, music, dance, choreography. And there are myriad other examples of a product becoming a source of pride, of income, of industry, of occupation, of identity. Product. Can we go to the next slide, please? Feel free to ask questions, okay? And then you have our intangible resources. What are examples of our intangible resources? Our stories, even our legends, right? You have so many legends about Maria Cacao. You have legends of Soli Soli. See, the legend of Soli Soli, how Lake Danau created. Apparently, there was a couple who were living in the area where Lake Danao is now, and they had a very bitter fight, verbal scrimmage. And they had a pet dog. And the pet dog somehow could feel the pain, the anger, the conflict between the couple, between the husband and wife. And so the dog started crying, started wailing. But the couple wouldn't stop. They were so fully engrossed, encased, blanketed by rage, by fury, that they could no longer hear the dog barking and wailing to kingdom come. Until finally, by some force of nature, because a couple wouldn't stop fighting, and the dog wouldn't stop crying and wailing and barking, somehow a great flood appeared and inundated that area. And that area where from the green, or from the reed, comes a product, a festival, an industry. That is a local legend. Whether it's true or not, we do not really care. But it is a legend that has been passed on from generation to generation. It is a legend that may not necessarily be true. It may not have happened at all, because scientifically it can't be explained. But it is part of local legend and lore. And that is something that we have to respect. And from that legend comes so many other stories, even songs, even poetry, and now dance. So, what are your local legends? What are your local stories? You have to know, right? Because each city, each town, each province, each little village, each obscure community of people will always have their own stories to make, to tell, and to share. These are resources that we may not see, we cannot touch, but we hear them, we know them, and many of them we know by heart. These are the intangible resources that again may carry the uniqueness of our stories. Next slide, please. You have creativity. What is the best example for a creative festival? You see, a work of art, dance, music, painting, sculpture, architecture, poetry, song. They are a response to a particular stimuli. And that stimuli could be a feeling. It could be a feeling of love, of awe, of faith. And from that overpowering feeling comes out that creativity. It can be from an external stimulus, a social event, or a historical event. That may be true, that may not be true. But in the case of the Mascara Festival of Bacolod, what is the story behind that? Back in the 80s, when the sugar prices worldwide were so down, and the NPA problem was, or almost, overran Negros, a lot of hacienderos left. Those who stayed were still reeling from the very, very low prices of sugar. And so it was a time of hunger and a time of strife for the people of Bacolod and of Negros. And so a group of people said, we can't let this sadness, this period of time in our history, of sadness, of poverty, of hunger, this very difficult, challenging time, we cannot allow ourselves to surrender to it without fighting back. And so they decided to come up with a festival called Mascara so that they could cover their faces, cover the sadness of their faces, and temporarily make them forget what they were all collectively going through. So it became, and it still is, a festival, a creative response to an external stimuli. That is creative. The Pinta Flores Festival of San Carlos City, symbolized by sunflowers. Pinta, Spanish for paint, and flores, Spanish for flowers. To paint flowers. If you go to San Carlos City, you don't see an abundance of sunflowers, right? But they decided, as a community, that they liked it. As a concept, as a creative endeavor. But the city government and the cultural stakeholders had to go through the process of consultation, of seminars, of lectures like this one, so that they could make the local community understand the relevance and the importance of what they were doing. And because they were successful in doing that, the Pinta Flores Festival is again one of the more established festivals of the Philippines. So that is creative. Next. Oh, I think this is, I call this the inspirational combos. You know why? I thought about this when I was in one of those fast food chains, and you realize that they have all these combo meals, right? So I realized that, hey, in the creative process, you can put different elements together. You can find different creative elements together and come up with something cohesive, you know, unity in diversion, unity in differences. So you have, for example, one product, and it becomes an inspirational combo. Why? Because from product, it becomes occupation. Right? Take the Soli Soli Festival, for example. Soli Soli is a reed. It's a natural resource. But when they sun-dry it, when they weave the Soli Soli reed into mats, into bags, into what do you call them? Banig, mats, wallets, or tapestry, or even walls sometimes. The natural resource, when processed, becomes a product. And because it is a product, it is a source of income. And a source of income is an occupation. And when you have many people practicing the same occupation successfully, sustainably through time, it becomes an industry. And it becomes part of culture. So you have festivals that I call inspirational combos because you see elements of the different creative resources that we just talked about. And so it becomes very diversified, interesting, colorful, very visual, so many stories to tell, so many individuals involved. So look into these things, because again, the creative process is continuous. It doesn't stop. If we just allow ourselves to go with the flow and to let those creative juices come out. But then again, research, research, research. And make sure that when you come up with your concept, which is the alpha and the omega, the beginning and the end of your story, the story that you will tell through dance, through music, through poetry, through art, that story is real, is representative, and has recall. And once you have that, you found the most firm foundation from the most important element that I talked about in the beginning of this lecture: balance. When we are able to find balance in our life, in our relationships, in our creative endeavors, in our concepts, in our work, in our relationships, then we are not in danger of tripping or of falling, because balance will be our guide through everything. Because in balance is the truth. And so I hope that through this lecture, I may have shared with you and with our virtual audience the truthfulness of my little experiences as a cultural worker, as an artist, through the years of wanting to create something that eventually may be our legacy to the world, or to the communities that we will eventually be leaving behind. The simple truth is truth itself, because that truth will be the source of that balance. Ladies and gentlemen, in this most difficult time of COVID-19, balance is hard to come by. Before I came up on stage, someone whom I've never met in person, but is a friend of mine in Facebook, is a basketball player based in Dubai, and his name is Arnel Mosqueda. I'm not too sure if he's listening. All of a sudden, from out of nowhere, sent me a message asking me if the Sinulog is pushing through. So I told him, well, on January 9 and 10, we only have the rewind coverage, virtual coverage, looking back at Sinulog sa Dakbayan and Sinulog sa Lalawigan. But on the 17th, I said, we have 22 contingents that will be doing street dancing in the Grand Ritual Showdown competition here at the open space of SRP, open space parking. But there will be no audience, I said. No audience. And then I said, there will be no procession, there will be no fluvial parade, there will be no translation as well. So a lot of events, things that through the years have defined the Sinulog for what it is today, one of the world's most beautiful festivals, will be missing. A lot of devotees will be crying their hearts out because for the very first time in their lives, they won't be able to see the Christ child. Because many of them, coming from Mindanao and Luzon and from all over the world, can't travel. And on the feast day of Señor Santo Niño, they will be lonely. They will be lacking something. Their faith will be shaken. They will probably light candles, say a silent prayer. These are different times, difficult times. And the challenge is for us is to find the balance. As artists, as a community of creatives, as a community of people, as a world of brothers and sisters, as one race, as one humanity, to find our balance in these most difficult times is a call we must try to answer. That is why this year, our theme is a reminder that there is life in faith, hope, and love. One beat, one dance, one vision. Thank you very much. I hope you learned something this afternoon. Viva Vince Escario!